When a cancer diagnosis is given, your world is plunged into darkness. But it is often in the darkest skies that we find the brightest stars. And when it rains, look for rainbows. So don't waste time worrying about the things you cannot control, such as the past. Keep moving forward. Don't look back, because you're not going that way. It may be hard to find your silver lining during a cancer diagnosis, but it's there. If you look for it, you'll find it. This is a story of Jane Frances Njoki Angalia, an incredible journey that she never imagined she would ever take. But then again, no one does. Not this kind of journey. My name is Yvonne Kalahi, and this is Cancer Diaries.
My name is Jane Frances Njoki Angalia. I am 52 years old. I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer 4 years ago. I was diagnosed in a very late stage. It was stage 3B, almost going to 4. My pathologist from Aga Khan Hospital gave me the results on a Tuesday and told me, Jane, you have to move very fast. Actually, it was on a Tuesday, and he said, can you come for chemo tomorrow? And I'm like, what is chemo? And the worst thing about this cancer, she said, it's called triple negative. So you have to move very fast with your chemotherapies, then surgery, and then radio.
4 years ago, Jane Frances was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer. Before her diagnosis, Jane led a perfectly normal life. She was pursuing a doctorate in mass communications to further her career.
So at the time I was diagnosed, I was just about to complete my PhD coursework. I was a part-time lecturer in Jomo Kenyatta, at the same time pursuing my PhD in mass communication so that I can, of course, better my career. And at that time when I was told I have cancer, I was shocked.
But how did it all begin? What was the sign that all was not well with Jane?
What was also shocking is that I had not really ever suspected that I have it. Surprisingly, for almost 2 years, I used to scratch my nodes underarm. Every other 3 months, I scratch. I go to the hospital, I had 2 insurances, and I would be given all kinds of creams to use. They would do blood tests, and they would not find out why I am scratching continuously on that left side.
Jane had had enough of the constant itch in her armpit. So she took the bold step to find out the source of that itch.
So it was not until I did quite serious blood tests, and then I went to see a schoolmate who was a radiologist, and I told her I am undergoing this for the last 1 year or so, and it's disturbing me. So what do I do? So she told me, Jane, what you are going to do, come to my clinic and we are going to do an ultrasound.
Jane had previously undergone 2 major surgeries for fibroids and an ovarian cyst. The radiologist had her suspicions, having undergone the same medical experience.
I think she was suspecting. Luckily, the year before, she had been removed a tumor of the breast after the symptoms I was telling her. So the moment she did all the tests, the ultrasound for the ovary and so forth, she discovered a very big tumor under my breast.
The ultrasound revealed a large tumor in Jane's left breast. However, more tests were required to determine the status of the tumor.
So she said, go and do an FNA and also a biopsy, and you bring me the results. And it was at that time that we discovered kumbe the tumor had grown so big, it was already starting to come out through the nodes. That's why now I was scratching.
The results were not good. The tumor was cancerous. But before any treatment could commence, Jane had to undergo more tests to establish the extent of the cancer. Had it spread beyond its original site? At what stage was the cancer?
After they confirmed and did the ultrasound, then I had now to do biopsy of this lump, which they found under the left breast. I was told we cannot just decide on surgery or chemo without doing further tests. So from an FNA, I had to do a biopsy, I had to do also MRI and CT scan, and all these tests, inclusive of bone scan, were supposed to establish whether this cancer had metastasized to other parts of the body.
It was an agonizing 2 months of waiting. 2 months that would determine the extent of the cancer before any treatment could begin.
It took almost a month, the whole of June and July, to do various tests to stage the cancer. And when I finally finished, we thank God at least it had not moved from the breast and the underarm or the other parts of the body, and even not to my bone.
The cancer had not spread too far from its original site, but due to the aggressive nature of triple-negative breast cancer, treatment had to commence as soon as possible. So a treatment plan was put in place.
Because it's very aggressive, we'll start with 4 sessions of chemotherapy, and then surgery possibly, and then more chemo and radio.
The medical team was ready to start the urgent treatment, but the patient was not. It was time for the family to come together.
The question is budget. We calculated, was told to send to an accounts office calculation, and within, I told it would be around 2.5 to 3 million. And that time my salary is maybe around 100 or so, and of course it's committed. We all know we have commitments, mortgage, car loan, and so forth. So I'm like, where am I getting 3 million? And it's a Tuesday, and I'm being told Friday to start chemo. They said, well, ma'am, my mom, we went home, we discussed, she said, we do Harambee and go to India.
The time Jane Francis was diagnosed with cancer, I was so sad. Because first, I thought I was the next one. It was very sad for us as a family. To start with, I alerted all her friends, because when you're sick, it's not easy for you to reach all your friends. So I was like her point of contact with all her friends. We started convening meetings. The first meetings were actually meant to raise that money to take her to India.
Cancer is a very expensive disease. And for most people, getting the finances for cancer treatment is a tall order. Jane needed to start her treatment immediately, but she did not have the finances that the hospital required to start the treatment.
I called the pathologist, said, if you start doing Harambee and planning to go to India, this cancer will move from stage 3B to stage 4. You need to move fast. Because when it reaches stage 4, we will not even help you. So just start with what you have. How much do you have? I said, I have 90,000 shillings. Okay, come with that one, and you start working. That's where I started.
With 90,000 shillings, Jane embarked on her cancer treatment journey, a journey that she hoped she would get the finances to complete.
So with 90,000 I paid. I did my first chemo on that Friday, and the side effects were terrible. I vomited. I've always been big anyway, but I think in about 2-3 days I had lost more than 7 kgs because I was unable to eat, and even everything was tasting like sand or metal. Everything had metallic taste. Whatever that chemo does to your body, as it is killing the cancer cells, I think it also kills the good cells, because after that you didn't want to see any food.
The chemo treatment was taking its toll, and Jane needed all the support she could get. Her aging mother was her #1 caregiver.
Thank God, my mother was there for me. She said, because now of the high budgets, I think it's better you move at home with me. So I came home to where she stays. I stayed with her. And she really immediately took up being my caregiver at her old age of, at that time she was 68. So you can imagine, mama mzee, I became like a baby back to her. But I thank God for her. Since I'm not married, I don't have a family, at least I had somewhere I could go.
We supported her a lot. My husband was her driver when she could not drive. All her sisters and brothers were there for her. And families kindly stop neglecting. Don't wish for that person to die ili aondoke. Hawakufangi haraka hivyo tunafikiria.
I thank God for my family, friends. They came for me. We did Harambee here and there. I sold a few things because, of course, as you know, the expense is quite high. I was able to sell a few things from my house, a few properties.
Even after selling off some of her properties and holding a Harambee, Jane still needed money to top up what had been raised. So she reached out to an insurance company for the much-needed medical cover.
I went now to look for an insurance because the one I had that time told me they were only going to pay for me 200,000. And yet I've been calculated almost 2.5 million to 3 million. So I said, now let me change. I look for another insurance that can treat me better, maybe help me go to India and so forth. So the first insurance that I walked into, the lady came and looked at me. I told her what I needed, and she said, "Ukona cancer? Is that one we can't take you?" I said, "Why? Cancer iponwi." I asked her, "What do you mean cancer iponwi?" "Yes, cancer haiponi, ma'am, so we are not going to take you. That's a liability to our insurance. So to tell me that cancer haiponi, that I said I am a woman of faith. This is my rosary. I believe I'm a staunch Catholic. I prayed the rosary and I said I'm going back to my Mother Mary. I'm going back to the Lord. Not that I had gone away, but I'll go and plead and claim for healing. Because if people are saying I can't heal, I know I will heal.
With that blow below the belt from the insurance company, Jane found solace in her faith and her family. She was going on with her journey. She was going to heal. Jane's story continues after the break. This is Cancer Diaries. Welcome back. You're watching Cancer Diaries. Jane Francis had been diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer, also known as TNBC. She had already sold off most of what she had to raise money for her treatment. On top of that, the insurance company had rejected to give her any medical cover. So for Jane, all she had was herself, her family, her friends, and her God.
Her lowest moment was when she could not resume her work as a lecturer, and it was so sad for us. And now, as we speak, she has no source of income, which is actually devastating. And we try as much as possible with her small business. We try to make her survive with what she can afford.
Despite all the financial challenges, Jane had her radiotherapy and chemotherapy. The treatment lasted 1.5 years. She then went on to India for a PET scan, which revealed all was not okay.
The PET scan is able to check whether the cancer cells have been cleared by the chemotherapy and the other phases of treatment. So luckily the cells were not being visible except for one section, still on the same breast at what they were calling the 3 o'clock position. A tumor had somehow defied the treatment and it was still there. Where I did the treatment here locally, they did what is called a lumpectomy. They just cut where the tumor was. And they checked and so it was okay and did more chemo and radiation. So when I did that PET scan, it shows there was a tumor which had persisted, where I used to scratch a lot. So they told me go and plan and then you come for what is called a total mastectomy.
This was not the news Jane expected to hear after her PET scan. Her hopes came crashing down. But due to the nature of her cancer, her only hope for survival was to undergo a total mastectomy.
Total mastectomy means they remove the whole breast. And now it was traumatic imagining myself to stay without a breast, and my surgeon here locally in Aga Khan had tried to preserve my breast. But again, they told me to be on the safe side because you are triple negative and you cannot take hormonal therapy, which is the 4th phase of treatment. And that is a tablet you are given for about 5 years, 7 or 10, to suppress the cells. So I was told because you are triple negative, we don't know the cause of your cancer, it means your only hope is for us to remove the breast and at least to stay at peace.
Breast cancer is the most common cancer among women. What type of cancer is triple-negative breast cancer? When doctors diagnose breast cancer, they look for 3 types of receptors known to fuel most cancer tumors: estrogen receptor, progesterone receptor, and human epidermal growth factor receptor 2 expressed in the breast cancer. They are also what our doctors typically target when treating breast cancer. A triple-negative breast cancer diagnosis means that the offending tumor is estrogen receptor negative, progesterone receptor negative, and HER2 receptor negative. Hence the name triple-negative breast cancer. Unfortunately, some breast cancer patients like Jane lack these receptors. When this happens, the breast cancer is called triple negative. And without these receptors, it can be very challenging to treat.
So mine is not hormone-based, it's none of this. Basically, the doctors don't know, or scientists so far have not been able to tell what causes triple negative breast cancer. We are actually very few. In Nairobi here, I only know about 2 or 3 ladies. In the whole world, I think that we are less than 10% with that type of condition. So whatever causes that triple negative cancer, since you don't know what it is, you also don't know how to suppress it.
It can feel upsetting and even scary to find out you have a form of breast cancer that is often more aggressive than other types, and 2, isn't a good candidate for treatments such as hormonal therapy and Herceptin.
My lowest moment was just the time I was told I have cancer. For sure, that word. Unfortunately, in the recent past, before I was told like 3-4 years earlier, we had lost both grandparents on my mother's side. We believe it was cancer. The mzee was prostate. The mama she used to scratch herself, the grandmother, to scratch herself so much. So we suspected, my mother used to suspect, because now we had started hearing about cancer, was that. A year later, I was diagnosed with it, and it hit us hard. First of all, the expense, and of course, much more even just to be told you have the cancer. Yes, we knew we could do Harambes. The question is, was I going to survive? Especially, I was told 3B, and they really rushed me. If you don't start chemo in a week or 2, it will reach stage 4. What is this stage 4? It's what they usually say, haiponi. Actually, even much as stage 4. Mtu yote tu akiambiwa hana cancer, anaambia, cancer haiponi.
As Jane got ready to travel to India for her mastectomy, tragedy struck.
The time I was to go, I just got a passport for my mother, documentation, everything. Like we were to go in May, to now have the mastectomy in India. And because she had been diabetic, we wanted her to be checked, and she always used to complain about her right side. So we had also thought she would be checked. And it's just as well maybe we didn't go because they may have discovered she had liver cirrhosis, which a month before we went to India cost her life in less than 10 days. I think that for me was most difficult. You know, before I used to, when I was told I have cancer, I'm like, why me? Why me? For some time, But after attending a few support groups, I realized, why should it not be me? Who else should it be? My brother, my mother, you know? I shouldn't ask. But now, this time when my mom passed, now I ask God, why mom? Why not me? That I had cancer and went through so much. Why are you taking my mom? She's my caregiver. She's our pillar. You know, we had already lost our dad. Now here she's gone. And then to deal with a very heavy bill of over 1-point-something million in 10 days. And I'm the firstborn. So you can imagine I'm being left siblings, and I'm also not very well.
5 months after her late mom's funeral, Jane finally traveled to India and had her mastectomy.
My biggest challenge has to be to deal without a breast. So I did reconstruction, unfortunately, because I had not healed from the radiotherapy side effects. The new skin could not work well on the old dead skin from radio. So, and therefore, I still have to use prosthesis. Is a type of breast which every woman, once the breast has been removed, we are encouraged to buy. One is very expensive. At the time I went under mastectomy, one can cost 30,000, 40,000 Kenya shillings. Yes, and you can imagine, and sometimes you have to have 2, because now you can't just put one, it may not need anyway, but there's a special bra which you put, and then of course you fix it. You fix it, you see now they're almost a bit equal. But without it, then this other side is flat. But once you fix it there, and then maybe sometimes there are women even who are removed both breasts, so you have to. So if it's one is 30, 40,000, the other one is 80,000, maybe even 100.
The Kenya government, through the Ministry of Health, distributed some free prostheses to cancer support groups. Jane was lucky to be one of the beneficiaries. For the poor woman who cannot afford the expensive prostheses, the Limau Cancer Connection is making simple prostheses from wool and giving them out for free to those affected by the disease.
fact, even the Mawanjiko there in the village, even they cannot access even this. So that helps also to rebuild a woman's dignity. And you don't have to stay, feeling like, one side you are limping because you don't have a breast, yeah. So, but I would encourage, because the Bible says, Jesus tells us, if the hand causes you to sin, remove that hand. If the eye is the one making you not see, remove it. So if breast cancer is the one going to make me die, and, I would call it die a premature death, because you could have avoided it by remove the breast. So just remove it. Take the option of the prosthesis or reconstruction if it's possible, and move on with life. And that's what I've done.
Jane Francis moved on with her life, lost some friends, and made some new ones along the way.
One thing that can happen to you when you get cancer is how people relate to you. Actually, it's really strange. But while you would think that many people have been with you, they have been your friends, that time, and you discover it when especially you fundraise. And as I've said, cancer is very expensive. So invite in my phone book, I have like 2,000 people. I know that if I send this message to 2,000 people, at least if one gives 1,000, how much is that? It's good money. It's like maybe it will be enough for my whole treatment. But surprisingly, you might realize maybe less than 50 might respond well, and less than 10 might actually even come to see you, and less than 100 might even give you 200 to 500. You really almost lose friends, especially when they know that maybe you'll ask them for money for hospital or for treatment, or maybe you even just to come and see you with hunger. But again, on the other side, God is good. You make new friends, and still also some of those old friends are there, even your own relatives, classmates that even we had lost touch. Can you imagine in 25 years, 28 years, I had cancer, we hadn't been in touch, but thank God also for social media, through WhatsApp, maybe somebody had all our friends when so she was in our class, she's undergoing, and people just take it upon themselves. So you find this group of classmates, they come to see you, bring you something, and so forth.
Staying with somebody who has cancer can be very devastating, and sometimes we forget about them. When we take them to hospital, they have the chemotherapy, the radiotherapy, we neglect them and we go back to our work.
I would just want to encourage some relatives, friends to be there for their loved ones, because I think psychologically speaking, we live because we are. If I am alone, I will not be. Had I been alone, I wouldn't have made it. But because of my mom being there, and then my other extended family, brothers and sisters also, who are almost like my neighbors in the home, I am alive today.
Depending on the stage at the time of its diagnosis, triple negative breast cancer can be particularly aggressive and more likely to recur. So what is Jane doing to stay alive? Find out next week as we turn the pages of Cancer Diaries. My name is Yvonne Kalahi. Good night.
Unfortunately, as I said, because I'm triple negative, the cancer seems to be like, as I said, it was aggressive and it can recur.
Can't there be anybody supporting her?
Recently, in the last 2 months, I got tumors on both breasts.
Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Call us, talk to us, share your story.